recording and we will start now. Hello everyone. Good morning, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. It is nice to have you all here with us. And thank you for joining today. My name is Hebel Komi and I will be your moderator for this webinar. We are excited to have you with us. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over views for housekeeping points. The first, feel free to submit your question at the chat, or you can submit your question after each panelist. We will have 5 to 10 minutes in order that you can submit the question to the panelist. Please keep your microphone muted to avoid background noise. We will be recording today's session. Today's session is under the topic of the role of nuclear medicine in integrated healthcare in Africa. This edition and this webinar is designed to celebrate African Traditional Medicine Day on 31 of August 2025. And it is an opportunity moment to explore the evolving landscape of healthcare on the continent. One area gaining promising is the role of nuclear medicine. Nuclear medicine is a modern, high-specialized branch of medicine that uses a small amount of radioactive materials to diagnose and to treat virus disease, including cancer and heart conditions. In the spirit of integrated healthcare, nuclear medicine complements traditional healing practices by offering precise, science-based diagnostic and therapeutic options. With that, let's dive now and I'm thrilled to introduce our panelists. Thank you again for being us. Let's just get started. We will start with our first panelist, Dr. Yahya Omar. Dr. Yahya Omar, he is a nuclear medicine physician, the head of Theranostics unit at Mass Radiology Center, which is one of the top nuclear medicine centers in Egypt and the first site to start a Theranostics service. Dr. Yahya Omar, the floor is for you. You can start your presentation now.
Thank you, Heba, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to be here today with the whole team of the Nuclear Aware Africa. So my name is Yahya Omar. I'm a nuclear medicine physician from Egypt. And as far as I understood, the majority of the participants are not aware yet of nuclear medicine. So I wanted to start from the basics just to make sure that everybody knows what's the value of nuclear medicine and how it helps our patients. I will share my screen now. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, Dr. Yahya.
You see my slides, right?
Yes, we are seeing your slide now.
Okay, very good. So the idea for the next 20 or 25 minutes, again, I'll try to show what's the added value of nuclear medicine. First part, I will start by the basics to make sure that everybody just is following what we're saying. And then the second part will be about what we do with PET-CT and how it added to our patients. And the third part will be about the future of nuclear medicine, or what we call theranostics. So let's start by a very basic question now. What's the difference between radiology and nuclear medicine? In both of them, there is a patient lying down on the machine, but there's a very big
Dr.
difference.
Yahya, please, your slide doesn't move to another slide. It is still your name and the head title, and also put it in the play view, please.
Just a minute. Do you see this slide now? Is it moving or not yet?
This is outline. It is a slide called outline.
Okay, let me show my screen anyway. It's confusing a little bit. Do you see now this image, this slide?
Yes, it is the radiology versus nuclear medicine. Yes.
Okay, let me try to make it. When I make the image full screen, do you see it now?
Yes, it is okay now.
Now it's working, right? Okay.
Yes.
Because I can't see you. I don't know why. but I don't see you. So now now everything is working, right?
Yes, now everything is working. Yes.
Okay. So as I said, we'll have three parts. The first part will be the basics, and as I said, we need to make sure to know that the basics of how radiology and nuclear medicine works. Again, patient lying on the machine, but the main difference is the source of direction, source of radiation, how it moves, and the direction of radiation. In radiology, the radiation comes out of the machine towards the patient, but in the nuclear medicine, it's the opposite. We inject the patient with radioactive material, and the radiation comes out of the patient towards the machine. This is a very important difference between radiology and nuclear medicine. In nuclear medicine, we have two types of machines. We have gamma camera and we have PET CTs. Gamma cameras are widely available. It's much cheaper, almost 1/4 of the price of the PET CT. So this is why we usually have 4 times the number of gamma camera compared to PET CT. Gamma camera is the older generation, and the newer generation is the PET CT. So how does nuclear medicine exams performed? All nuclear medicine studies are performed almost the same. We inject the patient with a radioactive tracer, and then we wait for a certain time for the body to absorb this radioactive tracer, and then the patient goes inside the machine. So all of the nuclear medicine, again, the radiation coming out of the patient towards the machine. And depending on the type of injection we inject our patient, we have a different type of study or different type of exam. So in the gamma camera, if we inject the patient, for example, with technetium MDP, now we have something called bone scan. If we inject the patient with technetium DTPA, now we have a renal. If we inject the patient with MIBI, now we have a cardiac. The same concept in the PET scan. If we inject FDG, which is the most common tracer in the PET scan, we have a different exam as well as the PSMA and dotatate. So the conclusion in this part, depending on the injection, we will have a different type of scan, but the machine itself doesn't change anything. Now, what's the difference between PET scan and gamma camera? In the PET CT, we have both two images together. We have the CT, this is why we call it PET CT. We have the images from the CT, then we have the images from the PET, which we call the function, and we fuse both images together to have something called PET CT. So what's the significance of that? Why is that really important to our field? The addition of PET CT, I'm going to highlight it in this part. What we call in the nuclear medicine, we see the function or activity. But in the radiology, we see anatomy or structure. And this is how we see it. If we report a CT is an image, a black and white image, like in this image, and the radiologist is trying to find out the lesions which are always gray or black and white in the image that is also black and white. So it's not very easy to look for something hidden in this image. It's like showing you a picture like that with many details and to try to ask you something hidden in this image. Like, can you see the hidden apple? So there is an apple hidden in this image, and the radiologist, the daily work of the radiologist is to try to look or to find out the abnormality, which is gray colored in an image of, again, gray colored image, which is not very easy. Now let's move to the nuclear medicine. In the nuclear medicine, we see hot spots like this spot. So we see an active part, but we do not see details. So this is the hidden apple that was in the last image. Now we can see where it is. We can see the location, but we cannot see the details. So this is how nuclear medicine works. We know that there is something wrong here, but we cannot really see it precisely. So now we add the positives of the PET and the positives of the CT. So this is the anatomy, the black and white, and this is the image that shows the hot spot. Now we fuse both together to have the PET CT. And this is the main value of PET CT, that you have data from two different modalities combined together to see the positive combination of both of them. So simply now we can see the apple. And this is why PET CT became a cornerstone in most of cancer patients, because now cancer patients need to scan the whole body looking for cancer hidden in the body. And nothing is easier than this now. The patient goes inside the machine for 15 to 20 minutes for the whole body. And now you can see clearly where is the apple or where is the cancer when we are looking for our daily routine scanning of our patients. So now we covered the basic part. Now let's go to the more routine part of what we do on ground in clinical practice. So let's start by the PET-CT. Again, this is the most common tracer that we use. The most common tracer that we use in PET-CT is called FDG. This is like almost 90 to 95% of all our PET-CT examinations. And the idea is simply brilliant. This is the normal scan. And the idea is that we inject our patient with a radioactive sugar. And the idea is that the sugar goes inside the body and it gets absorbed by any hyperactive tissue or hyperactive tumor. So the idea is that if you have a tumor, the tumor likes to eat sugar. So now the sugar is radioactive, so now we see it. So this part, which is active here, what does it mean? It means that this tissue is overactive, so it has high metabolism, so it absorbed the radio tracer that we injected, so now we can see it. So it's a very, very interesting idea. And again, as I said, we've been using PET scans all around the world, for example, in Egypt, probably in the early 2000s, and it really shifted how we handle our cancer patients. Now, what's the value of the PET scan? We have oncology benefits and non-oncology indications. For the oncologic imaging, as I said, the whole body detection tool for the tumors, follow-up after treatment, and localization of biopsy. We're going to explain what that means. And for the non-oncology, we can use it for imaging inflammation. It has neurologic applications as well as cardiac applications. I will mainly focus quickly for the sake of the time on the oncologic indications. So this is an example. Usually patients, when they have a cancer somewhere, the main question now is the cancer localized or it has spread elsewhere? Because this is the main question to define the management of the patient. So for example, this patient had a lower thigh osteosarcoma. This is the black spot here. This is a cancer in the left leg. And the question was, did the tumor spread or not? And when we did the PET scan, we found that there was a spread here for the lymph node. So that completely shifts the management of the patients. Now the patient is metastatic. So one of the most common indications of PET scan is primary staging of newly diagnosed cancers. The second important point is follow-up after treatment. So for example, this is a patient. She has lymph nodes here in the black spots in the red circle. And then she took therapy, she came back, and after therapy, we see the black dots increasing. What does it mean? It means that the cancer is growing and the patient is not responding to treatment. So we need to shift to another treatment. So now we can really know how our treatment is working very easily. 15 to 20 minutes, we can see the black dots increasing. So this is progressing disease. Now let's see another case. This is before therapy, and all the black dots here are cancer. And the patient received therapy, came back for follow-up, and now we can see resolution of all the black dots. This is complete response. So now we know that the treatment is working. Again, 15 to 20 minutes on the machine, you can see the whole body, and you can make sure that the treatment is working good with no residual disease. And what's really important in our tools, that we can quantify the disease. We have something called SUV. It's like our unit of measuring activity. So now we can measure the amount of activity that is residual. So this patient had a 95 SUV, which means very high activity. After treatment, it reached to 9. So it is quantifiable. So we follow up patients with numbers to know the degree of response. And also we can do that in several time points, like in this patient in 2020. She had multiple lesions here. Then after 2 months, she had only a single lesion, the black dot here, which showed regression in activity, then complete resolution. So we can use this tool for temporal follow-up with no implications on the patient, or we are really using very low amount of radiation. So there is no fear that we are doing something bad to our patients. So now we covered again, as I said, the majority of the indications of PET scan using our, we say the Joker tracer, we say this is the FDG. Now let's move to what's new, or the new era, which has been around for like 6 or 7 years. What we call it now, receptor imaging. Just to remind everybody, this is depending on the sugar. FDG is depending on sugar, depending on any hyperactive tissue. Now there's another mechanism or another tool, which is called receptor imaging. And this takes us to the third section of this presentation, the theranostics. So what is theranostics? Theranostics, now we have, it's the combination of two words, the word therapeutics and the word diagnostics. And the idea now is that we can target the same receptor on cancer cells. This is the receptor unique to a cancer cell. We can target this receptor by radioactive isotopes for two functions. The first is to diagnose the tumor and then to treat the tumor. So this idea is called theranostics. So we see the tumor and then we treat the tumor. So why is it important, or what's the value, or why is it that important to the nuclear medicine field or to the whole medicine field and to our patients? Why is that important? That is important because now in the diagnostic part, we have better tools. It's like the difference between both these two images. The image on the left, as you can see, is hazy. You cannot see the details, but the image on the right is visible. You can see the details. And this is what happened with the advances in nuclear medicine, because now we can see better. It's like wearing eyeglasses. Now we can see more tumors. Now we can see smaller tumors. We see disease earlier than in the past. In the past, our tools only saw this far. Our new tools, now we can see much better. So in the first added value of the receptor imaging is we have accurate diagnostic and whole body staging tools. This is extremely important to our patients for better staging and better management. The second value in theranostics is that we can, when we detect the receptors, we can know which patients are going to respond to treatment and which patients are not going to respond to treatment. And the prediction of response is very important and characteristic in the nuclear medicine, because in other disease, we used to give all our patients the same treatment. So for example, all patients will take the same chemotherapy regimen, and then we follow up the patients to see the effects of the chemotherapy. Some patients respond and some of them do not respond. But now in the nuclear medicine, from day one, we can predict if this patient have high probability to respond to treatment or not. And by doing that, we can exclude patients that are not going to respond. So we save them waste of energy, waste of time, waste of money on paying on treatment that is not suitable for this patient. So the prediction of response to treatment is extremely, extremely important in the nuclear medicine field. And again, the impact on the patients is is enormous. Now moving to the therapeutic, now we target the same receptor. What's the value of that? We call it precision. What do we mean by precision? Is that now we can target the cancer cell and we hit the cancer cells with high radiation, but at the same time we spare healthy tissues. So that leads to low side effects, unlike chemotherapy, for example. Chemotherapy hits all the cells. But now in the nuclear medicine, we can precisely target cancer cells and avoid hitting normal cells, so that decreases the side effects. So the conclusion that theranostics leads to better patient management. This idea of theranostics in the current practice is being performed in three diseases: thyroid disease, thyroid cancer, neuroendocrine, and prostate cancer. For the sake of the time, I'm going to highlight only the prostate cancer and how it helped our patients that have cancer prostate. So in prostate cancer, the receptor or the target that they're going to hit, it's called PSMA receptor. So again, we said we have a diagnostic tool and then a therapeutic tool. So the diagnostic tool is that we inject our patients with something called PSMA tracer. This radioisotopes, small amounts of radioisotopes that goes inside the circulation. We inject that intravenously, goes inside the circulation, attaches to the PSMA receptor. So now we can see the whole body showing multiple cancer all over the body with very high sensitivity and specificity. Someone is unmuted. Can you please mute? All right, let's continue. So the first part or the first value, now we have something called PSMA PET-CT. As I said, to inject PSMA tracer to have a whole body tool to see the metastasis or where the cancer has spread all over the body. And the significance of that is that this is the most sensitive and specific whole body imaging tool for cancer prostate. So if you have a cancer prostate patient and you want to know where is the spread or where did the tumor go, this is the best modality by far now, which we have in our nuclear medicine department. And that was one of the trials where they compared the PSMA PET-CT with the normal or the old method, which is bone scan and CT. And the PSMA showed it had greater accuracy, 27%. The accuracy of the PSMA is 92% compared to 65 in the CT and bone scan. It had fewer uncertain results and greater treatment impact. This is a quick example. This is a patient, cancer prostate patient, performed bone scan. And the aim of the bone scan is to look for the metastasis. And the bone scan was normal. It means that there is no cancer that has spread. But when they perform for the same patient PSMA, now we can see all these black spots. These are cancer that are in this patient, but it was not seen on the bone scan. And this is extremely, extremely important because the best or the how we treat our patients depends on how we diagnose them. If the patient has no spread of disease, he has a certain pathway. But if the patient has spread of metastasis, he has another completely different pathway. So it's extremely important to diagnose properly. If you diagnose your patient properly, we can treat them properly. So the PSMA PET-CT, now we can really diagnose properly and accordingly put proper therapeutic plans. And this is because we detect the tumors directly, but in the bone scan, we detect something that appears later on, like the osteoblastic reaction surrounding the tumor cells. Now let's move to the interesting parts. Now we finished the diagnostic component of the prostate cancer. Now we move to the therapeutic component for prostate cancer, which is called lutetium PSMA. So again, same idea. We target the same receptor, but this time with a higher amount of radiation. Now we do not want to diagnose. Now we want to kill the tumor. So we send a larger amount of radiation to kill the tumor. Again, intravenous injection. The injection goes inside the body. It attaches to the cancer, emits radiation, and causes cell death. And again, as we said, what's important is the precision that we target the cancer and the healthy cells are normal, so the side effects are low. And one of the biggest trials performed on the lutetium PSMA, it's called Vision trial. I will not go into these details because I'm sure not everybody is interested, but the conclusion is that it improved, lutetium PSMA improved the progression. It stopped the progression and it improved the survival of the patients. And shortly, we say that the patients who received lutetium PSMA were living longer and living better. This is the conclusion for lutetium PSMA, that we inject our patients with an isotope. The isotope kills the cancer, and at the same time, it does not affect the quality of life, like chemotherapy, which makes heavy side effects and heavy toxicity. So now in our treatments, in our nuclear medicine, we can treat cancer patients with something that it is effective, with low side effects, and it leads that our patients are living longer and living better. And according to this trial, lutetium PSMA was FDA approved in March 2022, and that was after hormonal and chemotherapy, and after recent trials that showed that lutetium PSMA is even more effective than chemotherapy in certain patients and less toxic, which is extremely important. The FDA changed the indication just this year to mention that lutetium PSMA can be used pre-chemotherapy. And this is huge for the nuclear medicine field. And this is one example of our patients. This patient had severe metastasis. Metastasis means spread of cancer all over the body. All the black spots are cancer and along the whole spine. And this patient received only 2 doses, and then we can see resolution of most of the lesions. So it is effective. We can see the tumor burden reducing a lot. We can see the laboratory results improvement, and more importantly, we see patients feeling better. And again, this is the most important point, that the patients feel better after therapy. This is one of our patients. I was checking up on him. I was telling him how is the general condition, and that again 4 days post the first dose. So he was telling me that he's excellent. I'm 30 years younger, hungry, thirsty, sitting instead of lying. So we see really dramatic improvement, especially in the pain control, because usually these patients have very bad pain in the bones because of the metastasis in the bones. So they have very strong pain that is not controlled by medication. They take all painkillers, but the pain is very aggressive. So with lutetium PSMA, we really see pain improvement in the first week, very rapidly. And even I put this case to show you that it is tolerable even in elderly patients. So this was our eldest patient so far. That was 96 years old, and that was his baseline scan. He received 2 doses, and his PSA dropped from 600 to almost 4. So the therapy is even safe in older patients because, as I said, the toxicity is not high, so it works safely in most of our patients. So what's coming in the future? What's coming in the future is to try to replicate the success story with other disease, to try to figure out the receptors of other disease. So I think in the next 5 years, we will have the same concept for brain tumors. As I said, now we have that in 3 diseases: thyroid, prostate, neuroendocrine. Only 3 diseases. Probably in the next 5 or 10 years, we will have nuclear medicine treating many other diseases, like brain tumors, like breast, like lung, like hematological. There will be rapid improvement in the future to detect other tracers. And this is our summary of most of the companies working in the nuclear medicine field and trying to detect. All these are new compounds being tested. And these are the 2 main approved drugs. So all of these compounds, of course, not all of them will reach approval, but at least we will have some of these reaching the approval. So in the future, we'll have other drugs for many other diseases. So to conclude, nuclear medicine has great and positive impact on patients' management. And now we can diagnose disease more accurately and more precisely to destroy them. And what's really interesting, that the rapid pace of development in nuclear medicine field is really very fast. And this is very promising to all that are working in the nuclear medicine field, and more important, promising to our patients to have more tools to help them in the future. And my final message is that nuclear medicine is the light in the dark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yahya. It was a very powerful and informative session with you. You didn't imagine how much messages I received on my on WhatsApp as they need your presentation. It is very simple and it is very informative, and a lot of students learn a lot and how is the nuclear medicine is important. On the behalf of the Nuclear Aware Africa, I wanted to extend my gratitude for your insightful and contribution. Your expertise added a lot to this session. Thank you for your time and thank you for your contribution. Played a vital process in our event. Now we are opening it to a small discussion. If anyone wanted to ask Dr. Yahya any question, they can raise your hand or make a message on the chat group, and he will respond to you directly now. Until you raise your hands, I ask all of you to open the camera in order to have a photo with our panelists. Please open the camera.
It's not easy for everybody to open the camera.
Yes, I know.
Keep it closed. Keep it closed. We don't want to see that if you're not ready.
Leader Goose, did you take it or not?
Okay, Hiba, I was able to get a few from this end. I was able to get a snippet from this end.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, close your camera, and if anyone wanted to ask a question. We have received Hope was very interested, and thank you about your presentation. Nisi, thank you, Dr. Yahya, for your presentation. Hello, good morning. I kind lost of network, and she wanted to ask about the name of the radioactive agent that was approved. What is the name of the radioactive agent that was approved, Dr. Yahya? Because her network lost in this point.
I think we're talking about the therapeutic part. So in the therapy section, what we treat cancer prostate patient, it's called lutetium PSMA. I'm going to write it down for you. Lutetium PSMA for cancer prostate.
Okay. Second question is from Nisi. He asking about it, something is relating to cost. How much does this cost, and what are the prospects for making treatment accessible and affordable?
The cost, the short answer, it's expensive, unfortunately. I'm talking about the therapy part, not the diagnostic. The diagnostic is more or less affordable. I am talking about the therapy part, the therapeutic injection. Usually it costs between 5,000 to 7,000 or 8,000. That's in our region, in Africa. In Europe, the dose is more expensive, is around 20-something thousand euro, like 22,000 euros. In the States, in the United States, the dose is $50,000 because the insurance pays over there. So the short answer, it is not cheap, but in the future, we hope that we have production of the radioisotope from the local countries. If each country can produce their own isotopes from their own nuclear reactor, that would make the therapy accessible to many patients and try to avoid this high cost.
Okay, another question. Hello, do you have, please mute your mic instead of, yes, thank you. Hello, do you have cyclotron production or radiopharmacy in your facility or country?
In Egypt, yes, we have three.
Please, Tijan, mute your mic. Yes,
In
please go.
Egypt, we have three cyclotrons for the routine mainly F tracers. Also, we have in Egypt the production of radioactive iodine 131 from the
Yes.
nuclear reactor, as well as technetium generators. But for the lutetium therapies or lutetium isotope, we import that. It's not produced in Egypt.
Yes. Okay. To conclude, for Alfonso now, Egypt has three cyclotron, and also the second research reactor in Anshas produced the iodine 131 bulk solution and the technetium generator, and maybe the moly 99 byproduct. Mr. Dr. Kress he's raising his hand and he wanted to ask a question. You can ask now,
Okay,
Dr. Kress, your question.
okay, thank you. Excellent presentation. Yeah, my name is Dr. Chris. Yeah, I'm a radiographer, PhD. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just want to find out you talked about the future. So regarding the future, where is the place of artificial intelligence in both diagnostics and also in modeling and disease diagnosis in radiation medicine? Thank you.
I'm not really into this part, but the basic answer, we will have better machines. Better machines means faster acquisition. So instead of imaging the patient in 15 to 20 minutes, you have AI that produces the same image quality in a shorter time. So the patient can have the same quality in half the time, for example, or half the injected amount of dose. So you can inject the patient lower. So we will see improvement in the machines. We will see improvement in the software. You will see better delineation of the tumors. The softwares will help you write the report faster. We already have this now, by the way, that you have the scan and the AI can detect the cancer all over the body automatically. And you just go through the scan after the AI to save the physician's time in the reporting. And I think also one of the big helps, what's going to help in the AI is in the prediction of response, because this is the main idea that we have in the nuclear medicine, that the therapy is expensive. So we need to make sure who will benefit from the treatment and who will not benefit from the treatment to avoid giving high cost to a patient that is not going to benefit. So the AI is going, I think we're going to feed the AI with data about the patient age, the number of the lesions, the size of the lesions, the SUV of the lesions, the characteristics like hemoglobin level, blood labs level, and the AI was going to automate that and tell us the probability of response to this patient and should you give this patient treatment or not. So I think there will be lots of advances in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Excellent response. Well done. Well done.
Hiba, you're muted.
Thank you, Dr. Kressa, for asking. Gabriel said to you, Dr. Yahya, nice article about vision trial. And she also shared the links for the article. And Ogano said that good work there. Any other questions, or shall we go to the second panelist? Yeah. Sanusi, now you can ask.
Good day. So I don't really understand the concept of the MRSA. You said the lithium is used for the diagnosis part, and the gallium is used for the therapeutic part in prostate cancer. Then the MRSA is the target receptor Is it used independently or it is used with the lithium and then used with the gallium?
It's used, it's the opposite. It's the same receptor as we said. It's called, for example, in the cancer process, it's called PSMA receptor. So it's the same receptor on the cancer cells. First step is we use gallium PSMA to diagnose the tumor, to see the tumor in the PET scan. Then after seeing the tumor and confirming that the patient has enough receptors or enough disease, after the patient finishes the scan, so he's going to make a scan today, for example, and then after seeing the results of the scan after 2 days, we will say that the patient is going to benefit from treatment. So now we get lutetium PSMA and inject the patient. So it's 2 steps. They don't have to be in the same days. We have a diagnostic step on a separate day and a therapeutic step on another day. The only idea is that it's the same receptor. You diagnose it with a certain isotope and then you treat it or you kill it with another isotope. I hope I'm clear now. If not, maybe try to write your email. We can discuss that further later if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Hiba, you're muted again.
Last question, Gabriel suggested that 68 gallium is an isotope used for diagnostic only. Lutetium 177 is for therapy. Please confirm to her.
That's Gabriel. Gabriel is a good friend. Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yahya, for your powerful presentations and for your information, and thank you for your time. Now, let's go to the second panelist, which will be Dr. Elizabeth. Dr. Elizabeth is a first female radiopharmacist, serves as the head of pharmacy at Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral, and Research Hospital. In this role, she oversees cyclotron operations, radiopharmaceutical production, and the quality management system to ensure safe and reliable access to PET tracer. Dr. Elizabeth is a 2025 Mandela Washington Fellow and Ambassador of Nukidium Foundation, where she championed the advancement of theranostic and personalized cancer care in Africa. Beyond the laboratory, she is actively engaged in healthcare policy, advocacy, and mentorship, committed to shaping an enabling environment for nuclear medicine growth and fostering the next generation of radiopharmacy professionals. Dr. Elizabeth, the floor is for you now. You can start.
Thank you so much, Hiba, and thank you for the lovely introduction. Confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think the presentation is placed at the right place after Dr. Yehia has covered the applicability of the various radiopharmaceuticals in disease diagnosis and treatment. Maybe we should spend the next few minutes learning how we make the drugs that are used for the PET-CTs, the SPECT-CT, and the therapy that Dr. Yehia has talked about. I'm going to use Kenya as the case example because it's the data that I could easily get, but this will probably be replicable in most of the countries where we have nuclear medicine being practiced in Africa currently. The slide is moving.
Yes.
Thank you. So to perform nuclear medicine studies, as you've probably already inferred, you need to inject the patient with a molecule we call a radiopharmaceutical. So the first thing that I want us to understand is what a radiopharmaceutical is. So a radiopharmaceutical is a pharmaceutical compound that has 2 components. So the same way you think about your normal drug, so it's still a pharmaceutical component, but the unique thing about it is that it contains radiation. So the radio means that it's radioactive, and pharmaceutical that it's a pharmaceutical compound. If we are to use the FDG that Dr. Yehia has given as an example for what we commonly use for PET scans, so FDG in full is written as fluorine 18 fluorodeoxyglucose. So fluorine 18 is the radioactive component of your pharmaceutical compound, and fluorodeoxyglucose, which is fluorinated glucose, is your pharmaceutical component. So radiopharmaceuticals are the backbone of nuclear medicine, meaning that without radiopharmaceuticals, you don't have nuclear medicine, be it for treatment or diagnosis. So a very clear distinction was explained of how a nuclear medicine differs from conventional radiology, in that for nuclear medicine, the radiation is coming from the patient. And in radiology, the radiation is coming from the equipment. That therefore means that you have to inject your patient with the radiation so that the camera can be able to pick it if we're talking about diagnosis, or so that it can induce damage if we are talking about therapy. So radiopharmaceuticals enable diagnosis, therapy, and monitoring in integrated healthcare. In Kenya, we are mainly using radiopharmaceuticals in oncology, but that does not mean that nuclear medicine is only used in oncology. It finds use in many other diseases, especially for diagnosis. But for treatment currently, I believe we are mainly concentrating in oncology for treatment. So there's one or two very unique properties of radiopharmaceuticals. And the first one is something we call short half-life. So short half-life, if I'm going to use FDG as an example many times, our fluorine-18 FDG that we use for PET scans has a half-life of 110 minutes. That is approximately 2 hours. What that means is if we make 10 curie in the morning, within 110 minutes is going to be half of that. Another 110 minutes is going to be half of that. That presents a logistical challenge because it means that for most of our radiopharmaceuticals, we have to produce them either at the site where they are being used or near the site of use. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but even when there are exceptions exist, you'll find that most radiopharmaceuticals with medical applications will always present a logistical challenge because of the short half-life. The other thing about radiopharmaceutical is short shelf life, or what you commonly call expiry. Your fluorine-18 FDG, depending on the site, has a stability or has a shelf life of around 10 to 12 hours. So even if you still have radioactivity remaining within your drug, it means that when we make it at 6 a.m. in the morning, by 6 p.m. it is expired. That also is presenting its own logistical challenges because it means we can only move the drug within a specific distance. Things like lutetium that have been discussed for therapy, you will find that they have a half-life of about 6.6 days. But the moment you make them to lutetium PSMA or lutetium DOTA, which is now you're using for treatment, the shelf life reduces significantly. So the two things I want you to remember from this slide is that you have your radiopharmaceutical, which contains a radioactive element and a pharmaceutical element, and that you have short half-life and short shelf life or short expiry for most of the radiopharmaceuticals within the body. So when the work of the pharmaceutical component in a radiopharmaceutical is to drag your radiation to your target cells. So as opposed to your normal drugs, where you are interested in the pharmaceutical component inducing pharmacological action within the site, in this case, our interest is the radioactivity. But that radioactivity must be directed to a specific target within the body. And that's the work of the pharmaceutical component. And there's a slide that Dr. Yehia portrayed that contains technetium MDP, technetium MIB, technetium DTPA. So you still have the same technetium as your radioactive component, but the moment you change the pharmaceutical component, the target changes. So if you want your radiopharmaceutical to localize within the brain, you just attach it to a pharmaceutical component that is going to drag it to the brain. If you're interested in imaging the kidney, then you attach it to a pharmaceutical component that is going to take it to the kidney. Or if you're interested in bone, you attach it to a pharmaceutical component that has propensity to go to the bone. So you can have the same radioactive compound or radioactive element, but the moment you change the pharmaceutical compound, the localization of the radiopharmaceutical changes. So we have three main methods for the production of radionuclides. Your radiopharmaceutical is made up of the radionuclide and the pharmaceutical component. So to generate your radionuclide, you can have three main methods. And the first method is nuclear reactors. So nuclear reactors are mainly for therapeutic isotopes. And here I'm talking about medical applications because you'll find non-medical applications of other isotopes that are produced. but most of our therapy radiopharmaceuticals or radionuclides are going to be produced by nuclear reactors. Kenya as
Dr.
a case
Elizabeth,
example.
sorry
Yes.
for interruption, but your slide doesn't move.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, okay.
And now?
Yes, it moved now to a slide under title Radiopharmaceutical Production Method.
Okay. Thank you. So
you are welcome.
As an example, Kenya, as an example, does not have a nuclear reactor, but I believe we do have a nuclear reactor in South Africa that is currently supplying the lutetium that Doc was talking about, the iodine. I don't know whether there's any other nuclear reactor within Africa that has the capability of production for supply. Then we have number 2, cyclotron, and the image on the screen is a cyclotron that we have in the facility that I have. So it's a GE PET trace. So we use this equipment for the generation of PET tracers, and PET is positron emission tomography. And we've said that the most common PET radiopharmaceutical is fluorine 18 FDG. So the cyclotron is helping us to be able to generate the fluorine 18 that now we are going to use to produce our FDG, and then we'll inject into our patients for PET scans. We also use the same cyclotron to generate for us F18 that we tag to PSMA to be able to image prostate cancer. As you've seen, as you can see, what I was trying to explain, that you can just change the pharmaceutical component of the radiopharmaceutical and your localization of the molecule changes. When it's F18 FDG, it's localizing in areas with high metabolic activity. When it's fluorine 18 PSMA, now it goes specific to prostate cancer cells. The third method of production is generators. So generators are portable sources. For example, the mother of SPECT-CT is a radionuclide we call technetium-99M. So technetium-99M is gotten from molybdenum-99, technetium-99M generators. So you buy the generators and you're able to milk, or you're able to use the generators for a period of 14 days, after which you bring another generator into the country. To be able to produce the generators, you also need a nuclear reactor. And then the nuclear reactor now will give you the generator that can be shipped to various regions within the continent. For Kenya, our main emphasis currently is cyclotron-based production of radiopharmaceuticals. We have 3 cyclotrons within the country. One is a commercial cyclotron, meaning that it can be able to produce the F18-based radiopharmaceuticals for the hospitals use, and also supply a few other PET-CT centers. The other 2 centers with cyclotrons are for in-house use. The cyclotron energy is not big enough for them to be able to supply unless they produce more than once in a day. So this is just an emphasis of what I was talking about, that radiopharmaceuticals have an extremely, or most of them are associated by an extremely short half-life.
It's really good. I can see the slides.
Please mute.
Please mute your mic. Please mute your mic. Please go, Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you. So radiopharmaceuticals are associated with a short half-life, so you need to produce them near where they're being used, or have very good logistical ways of handling how they're going to be shipped to the various areas. Additionally, especially if you're talking about actual manufacturing, for example, when you have a cyclotron facility is considered a manufacturing site. So in addition to know the complexities that are associated with radioactivity and the short half-life, you are also expected to adhere to the various rules that are associated with pharmaceutical manufacturing. So if you are manufacturing, for example, your fluorine 18 FDG, you're expected to do the whole set of quality control. And that, of course, is capital intensive and is probably the main limiting factor in most sites starting nuclear medicine. In most countries starting nuclear medicine is the capital or the capex required to be able to start a radiopharmacy plus buying the camera, etc. So the workflow would be in the morning, for example, when you come, you will do your compounding or your manufacturing, depending on the site. So if it's a generator that you have, that will be simple compounding. If it's a cyclotron facility, then you are going to be doing actual manufacturing. So you will come in 4 or 5 hours before the patient comes in. And then you will do your actual manufacturing plus associated quality control testing of the drug. You are going to dispense the drugs according to either multi-dose vials or patient doses, depending on your local pharmacy regulations. And then these drugs are going to be used either for imaging or therapy as appropriate. Now, if you remember your structure of an atom, your atom is made up of neutrons and protons, which make up the nucleus, and you have electrons, which are in the electron shells. So when you look at the nucleus, there is a certain ratio of protons and neutrons required per atom for the nucleus to be said to be stable. If this ratio is not achieved, that's when you generate radioactivity, or that's when the atom is said to be radioactive. And now there are various modes of decay of the nucleus. So the nucleus will always seek to become stable. So when it's trying to achieve the stability, it can either release gamma rays, it can release alpha particles, it can release beta minus particle, it can release beta plus particles. So depending on the particle or the rays that are released, then you find the applicability of the atom. So I'm going to use gallium and lutetium because it's what Doc set precedence for. So for example, gallium-68 emits a positron or a beta plus particle. So anything that emits a beta plus particle is going to be used for diagnosis. Also, anything that emits a gamma ray is going to be used for diagnosis. And then you can have something emitting an alpha particle or a beta minus particle. If an atom seeks to become stable by emitting a beta minus particle or an alpha particle, is going to be used for therapy. For example, the lutetium-177 emits a beta minus particle. So because beta minus has high energy, it's able to destroy the DNA. So it's going to be used for therapy. Also, alpha particles are for therapy. And that's how you differentiate between diagnostic and therapeutic radionuclides. It's all based on the method of decay, and the simplest way of thinking about method of decay is how the nucleus seeks to become stable. So the clinical role has been covered of radiopharmaceuticals is that we have diagnosis, and the diagnosis can fall under very many things, as Dr. Yehia has discussed. It can be initial diagnosis after the cancer has just been discovered. It can be following up response to treatment. It can be monitoring that maybe the cancer has come back, etc. So under diagnostic tracers, we have F18 FDG, F18 PSMA, F18 DOTA. So FDG, you've been told it goes to areas of high metabolic activity. So cancer cells are more metabolically active than normal cells, so they tend to take up more of the FDG. The PSMA is going to go to your prostate cancer cells, and the DOTA are for neuroendocrine tumors. And these are PET-CT, PET radiopharmaceuticals. Then we have SPECT-CT, and we've said that technetium-99m is the mother of SPECT-CT so far, but of course there are many other SPECT-CT radionuclides in clinical use. Then we have therapy, lutetium-177, iodine-131. So lutetium-177, you can pair it with PSMA and then you target prostate cancer cells. Or you pair it with DOTA and then you're targeting neuroendocrine tumors. Then you have the oldest therapy radionuclide, which is iodine-131, that we're going to be using for our thyroid cancers, or that is used for thyroid cancers. And Doc has discussed diagnostics, which is pairing imaging and therapy for personalized medicine. So though it's normally said that you see what you treat and you treat what you see. So you first diagnose to be able to see that your cancer cells is going to uptake your therapy radiopharmaceuticals, and also to also see the extent of the disease. And then you treat, and then you also image after treating. So it's seeing what you treat and treating what you're seeing. So I've talked about this, that Kenya, we have 3 cyclotrons. One is in a government facility, which is called Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. That's my employer. Then we have Aga Khan University Hospital and the Nairobi West Hospital. So KUTRRH is a government facility. Aga Khan and Nairobi West are private facilities. The country has 7 PET-CTs, and this is dramatic because these numbers have increased by 5 only in the last 3 years. So before 2022, we only had 1 PET-CT in the country. And then after 2022, we've gotten 6 more PET-CTs in this country. And I've said that the main limiting factor for people putting up PET-CTs or starting nuclear medicine services is the capital-intensive nature that is required to set up a radio pharmacy. So to set up a cyclotron facility is very capital-intensive. So whenever you have a commercial cyclotron that is able to supply many other sites within the vicinity of that cyclotron, then people are now encouraged to bring PET-CTs into the country. And that's why when KU Referral, the KU TRRH hospital set up the commercial cyclotron, many other people around the hospital not just bought PET-CTs because they're able to get the FDG and the PSMA from that hospital. We have 3 SPECT-CTs within the country, and then lutetium-177 therapy was PSMA was first administered in this country May of this year. So we are hoping it's going to pick up, but yeah, we've just administered lutetium-177 PSMA in one of the private facilities, and hopefully to administer it soon in government facilities. And then we have iodine-131 has been in use for the longest time. So Kenya is positioning itself as a potential radiopharmaceutical hub for East Africa. But of course, as I've said, the logistical challenges of transporting these radionuclide, especially the F-18, that has a 110 minutes half-life. So when you have radiopharmaceuticals, you are under 2 bodies, regardless of whichever country you come from. So the first body is the one concerned with radiation protection and safety, and that would be your version of, for what Kenya, we call them Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, but should be that version in your country, and the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, or even in the US, it's the FDA, etc. So for us, you have to be,
change the slide.
yes. I do not know what is happening.
I was asking you to change the slide.
It has changed now?
Yes, it has been changed now.
Thank you. I think there's a lag between when I change and when it shows. Okay. So the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, which licenses the production and GMP compliance. So a question was asked in the last presentation on the costs for a patient being able to get these modalities. So you find like a PET-CT diagnostic scan in this country, regardless of whether you use gallium or F-18 etc., is going to be reimbursed at $53,500. That's around $530 if you have to think about dollars by insurance. And then you have PSMA PET-CT, regardless of the tracer, is going to be reimbursed at around $640. So the major gap that we are having in this country is that, one, the major reimbursable nuclear medicine scans are only the FDG and PSMA or gallium, PSMA and gallium daughter. So when you think about SPECT, they only reimburse bone scan, they don't reimburse any other of the SPECT-CT studies. So you'll find that there has been low uptake of SPECT-CT within the country, not because the patients don't need it, but because they're not reimbursable by our social health insurance, which is what covers 95% of the Kenyans. And then if you do the radioiodine, the scan itself, they reimburse 11,000, which is probably sometimes more or less than what you need to bring the drug into the country. So this is something we are hoping to harmonize. And as you can see, you can't see lutetium there. And lutetium is a very expensive therapy radiopharmaceutical. So if it's not reimbursable and the country is charging around 1 million shillings per dose, and a patient will require at least 4 doses, that's 4 million shillings, which is like $4,000. Yes, $4,000, which is beyond the reach of most Kenyans. So for nuclear medicine to really integrate into the healthcare system in the country, the first monster that you have to deal with is its coverage within the social health insurance for the country. But we are somewhere, because 3 years ago, even what you're seeing on the screen was not there within our social health insurance scheme. So these are the challenges, and I've said that I'm using Kenya as the model example, but this is what probably you'll find in Uganda or Tanzania or whichever other country that will be dealing with nuclear medicine is the high capex that is required to establish a radio pharmacy. This is the image of the radio pharmacy within the facility with the cyclotron or within the facility with the commercial cyclotron. So to construct clean rooms, to have hot cells, to have a fully fledged quality control lab is very capital intensive, and that will dissuade many governments from investing in this technology. So Kenya is probably among the few, and now Tanzania is coming up. And apart from that, now you'll just have to go to South Africa or go to Egypt. Otherwise, within the East and Central and West Africa, you'll find you're only finding nuclear medicine within Kenya, and Tanzania is just trying to come up. We've discussed about the short half-life and shelf life of the tracers. This presents a lot of logistical challenges. For example, if you ship lutetium, we are doing lutetium within Kenya and we're not producing it here because we don't have nuclear reactors. So let's say we are bringing it from South Africa, from NTP in South Africa. If there is even a 1 day or a 2 day delay within customs, before they clear the lutetium, that has significant implications on the doses that is going to be present for the patient. Because with a 6 day half-life, even a 1 day or a 2 day delay means that if we ordered 250 millicurie, 200 millicurie is no longer 200 millicurie, it's coming as 190 or 180. And so we are having to find ways of navigating so that customs do not hold our drugs, but also we also ensure that they are following the law as to what is coming into the country. And I've said that we only have very few nuclear reactors that are producing for supply. So we are experiencing periodic supply chain disruptions, be it for the molybdenum, technetium generators of your lutetium or your iodine. So there's going to be sometimes supply chain disruptions that lead, of course, and consequently is going to affect patient care. And limited insurance reimbursement coverage, as I've discussed. For example, in Kenya, lutetium is not covered under the social health insurance. And of course, you have shortage of skilled radiopharmacy, and this is supposed to read nuclear medicine professionals. Kenya, as an example, and it's probably Kenya is doing very well within the Eastern, Central, and West African region. Kenya, for example, we have only 3 nuclear medicine physicians who are Kenyan, and 5 radiopharmacists, and probably 2 nuclear medicine technologists. So we are having to either work with people training on the job, or without having the actual qualification, or having to import skill from outside the country. So because this technology is new within Kenya and within Africa, most parts of Africa, so there are not very many people who have trained in this. So there's a time I went to Egypt for a training, and I was shocked being told the numbers of like 50 radiopharmacists, and the number of physicians are probably so many. So that situation is different when you come to these sides of Africa. So opportunities for growth, or for countries thinking into venturing into nuclear medicine, the first thing is you have to figure out where you're getting your radiopharmaceutical from. If you're thinking about PET-CT, for example, you must establish radiopharmacies. PET-CTs, it's almost impossible to ship from another country your FDG or your PSMA. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the logistical challenges are crazy, with the 110 minutes half-life for fluorine-18 or 68 minutes half-life for gallium-68. So the government or the country, the private sector has to think about how to establish radiopharmaceutical hubs that are able to, you're just able to establish one hub that can supply very many PET-CT centers. Egypt, for example, has 3 cyclotrons only, and the number of PET-CTs in the country are so many. So just by establishing just a few radiopharmacies, you're able to supply very many sites, but you must establish a radiopharmacy. You need also to decentralize this. So you find in Kenya, we have 3 cyclotrons, but all of them are within a 20-kilometer radius of each other. So you'll find a patient who lives 500 kilometers away still has to travel those 500 kilometers to come to Nairobi to seek nuclear medicine services. Even treatment is only offered within Nairobi. So the other thing is to decentralize so that you have at least patients traveling 200 kilometers, 200, 200, 200, not if some people traveling 700 kilometers to be able to access services, because sometimes that means that the patient will either not afford to travel, or will opt of being managed without this the PET CT or your SPECT CT or your therapy. And there's a significant advantage in the staging of the disease when you use nuclear medicine as compared to your conventional radiology. Kenya, we have the hope of expanding the portfolio. We have now 2 sites doing gallium-68 based radiopharmaceuticals and lutetium, and we are hoping in cooperation with the IEA to start aluminum fluoride. And of course, we are learning a lot from South Africa and Egypt, and we are having very many projects that are encompassing between Kenya and Egypt, Kenya and South Africa, to be able to learn from them and be able to bring the best practice within the country. And of course, strengthening relationship between the various countries, IEA, Ministry of Health, and academia, so that as you've seen, Doc has portrayed a lot of clinical trials that are currently happening, so that as Africa, we are not left behind, so that we're also part of those clinical trials and can be able to generate our own data and not rely solely on data generated outside our patient population. So in conclusion, radiopharmaceuticals are the heart of nuclear medicine, and we can produce them by either cyclotrons, nuclear reactors, or generators, and they enable accurate diagnosis and effective therapy, as has been covered by Dr. Yehia. And integration into healthcare system ensures access, accuracy, and equity. And there's call for action for us to invest in more infrastructure, radiopharmacies, PET-CTs, SPECT-CTs, workforce, and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth, for your presentation. Kindly, they are asking about sending them your presentation. Thank you for your information about the case study in Kenya and the relations between Kenya and Egypt and Kenya and South Africa. Really, thank you for your time. Now, I will open questions for 3 minutes because Dr. Elizabeth has another engagement and she will leave us. So anyone wanted to ask Dr. Elizabeth any question, please raise your hand or write on the chat as we will continue after she leaves. Nisi has a question on the chat. My question is regarding scaled manpower for radiopharmaceutical arbitrary institution across Africa offering training in the field to meet the demand.
Thank you, Nisi, for the question. So currently the training is in Egypt or South Africa. You'll find like in Kenya, of the 6 or 5 radiopharmacists in the country, 5 were trained in South Africa, 1 was trained in Europe. So I believe in Africa, we are training people in South Africa and Egypt or outside Africa. So yeah, that's also a very big gap. And physicians are also being trained only in South Africa or Egypt. And I'm speaking about English speaking countries.
Okay, Ruta he's raising his hand and has a question. Please, you can ask your question.
Yes, good evening, Ma. I'm Roda Kijobi from Nigeria. And my question is, considering the short shelf life of let's say I'm also give an example. For example, we have for elements, we can put for elements such as sodium and the others that are very reactive with air, we can put them in paraffin oil to preserve them and stop their reaction until they are needed. So is there like such opportunities for radiopharmaceuticals too, or are there ongoing research, or is there like an opportunity for that in the future? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rhoda. That's a challenging question for me also. As I know, currently there's nothing we can do to stop the half-life from being, if it's 110 minutes, it has to be 110 minutes. I don't want to answer whether there's any research going into whether we can stop that from happening. I will find out about that. But currently, there's nothing we can do. We lose half the activity in 110 minutes or 68 minutes, depending on the atom.
Dr. Elizabeth, can you share your slide and put it in the chat in order that some of colleagues needed this presentation for future uses and to read more about it. Please, if it is possible for you, you can share it on the WhatsApp, the chat group of this meeting.
That's okay. I'm going to share. Thank you.
Okay, and also Dr. Yahya, kindly, if you are still with us, please share your presentation for further use. There is another question, and it will be the last one for Dr. Elizabeth. Can radiomodulator be used instead of radiopharmaceutical?
I first have to know what are radiomodulators.
I didn't hear about radiomodulator before.
So radiomodulators are chemical or natural compounds that alter the biological effects of ionizing radiation. So there, the short answer is going to be no. I think it's related to the first question that was asked whether there's something we can do to stop the short half-life of the radiopharmaceuticals. And my answer was, for now, nothing. There's nothing that we can do to be able to stop it, but maybe there's more research going on. But the two are not interchangeable, the radiomodulators or radiopharmaceuticals.
Dr. Matt, you raise your hand. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. This aspect of medical practice, they are very rare in this our locality, like West Africa, Nigeria. It's not common. I don't know what and what do we need to put in place to ensure the practice of radiopharmaceutical practice in West Africa. I have discovered that Kenya has gone far in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew, but I've not fully gotten your question. So the question is, what do we need to put in place?
Yes, like an establishment or agency that would like to begin to practice nuclear medicine. What are the things we need to put in place? The policy, the equipment, the logistics, the structures, what are actually needed to ensure the good functionality of nuclear medicine to be practiced in a research institute or in a health institute? That is what I'm asking. What is the major requirement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Depends on what you want to do. For example, if you just want to do SPECT-CT, I know like Nigeria is already doing SPECT-CT or even therapy, because in terms of infrastructural requirements for this, it's not capital intensive. So for SPECT-CT, for example, the setup of the radiopharmacy is very simple. You just require a lab with lead shielding, and then you can just bring in your generators and your cold kits and a small fridge. Same to doing therapy. So long as you can import your lutetium or your iodine, you just need a small space for radio labeling and doing the quality control. But when we start talking about PET-CT, now it's very capital intensive because of the cost of acquiring a cyclotron and associated equipment. Because when a cyclotron in itself just gives you the radioactive component, but you need to make a radiopharmaceutical. So in addition to the cyclotron, you need to set up clean rooms that will have hot cells to be able to make your FDG, your PSMA, etc., depending on the radiopharmaceutical that you're going to be to make. And then you need to set up a quality control laboratory. And then remember, I said that you're going to be under two regulatory bodies. So you're going to be under the radiation board and the pharmacy board version of your country. So also meeting the requirements of these two boards is not normally easy at the beginning and consistently, because you have to consistently maintain the quality or the standards are set out by the two bodies. So PET-CT, I would say you need one government. If it's to be started in a government facility, a lot of government commitment. But also I've realized as a country, we have advanced very much by working closely with the IEA. So the IEA, of course, will not come and set for you the radiopharmacy and PET-CT fully, but they're able to support in a very significant way, so long as your government can commit to doing some parts of the investment. Yes, but SPECT you're already doing it, and therapy.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth. Now, returning to our next panelist, Mrs. Shinelo. She is a radiographer by training and currently works as a graduate intern with a nuclear engineering company. She also serves as an internal sub-team lead with Women in Nuclear Global Young Generation, where she advocates for us participation in the nuclear field. She's passionate about nuclear in healthcare and development. She brings a unique perspective that bridges medical imaging and nuclear engineering. She will give a presentation under the topic nuclear medicine complementing traditional healing practices. Mrs. Shanalo, the floor.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you very much. So my name, like Heba introduced me, I'm Miss Chinelo Chukura. I'm an internal sub-team lead with Women in Nuclear Global Young Generation and also a radiographer by training, but I'm currently out of diagnostic practice. And I'll be speaking to us today on the sub-theme of this webinar. The theme is actually the role of nuclear medicine in integrated healthcare, while the sub-theme is how nuclear medicine complements traditional health practices. And what particularly struck me about this sub-theme is that today is 31st August. That's the WHO assigned day to acknowledge and celebrate traditional health practices on the continent. And something that's very important to know that this particular theme brought to light for me is the fact that there's hardly any interface between nuclear medicine and traditional healing practices. Now, Africa is a continent where most of its people actually have the first port of call being the prophet or the religious leader or the traditional healer or even self-medication is the first port of call before they eventually move to the hospital. I mean, that's common practice, if we're being honest. Even the data statistics also say the same thing. So since we know that this is common practice here, we now understand that there's now a significant time lapse. There's a gap between the time of the patient detecting whatever is wrong with them, noticing their first symptom, and when they eventually arrive at the hospital. Because there's this loop that we can see. First of all, they will try to self-medicate or move somewhere else, a prophet or a healer or something like that, before they now discover that the situation is critical and then they need to go to the hospital. So since we're dealing in nuclear medicine and most of the cases that bring people for nuclear medicine happens to be cancer, then I'll be using that as my case examples. Now, today I don't have any slides that I wanted to use to talk about this particular topic. There's hardly any literature on it, but I found it very, very interesting. And I wanted to use practical examples on the continent. I wanted to use human stories of my personal experience during my time in diagnostic practice as a radiographer to actually explain this part. So like I was saying, a good portion of the African people, usually there is their grandmother's treatment, some herb she has been giving them, or there's a traditional healer somewhere in your community, especially the rural community, some Baba Ijebu or somebody of that nature. Even statistics show that in a country like Zimbabwe, about 80% of their population, especially in rural communities, go to the traditional healers first. So that statistics definitely says that before these patients that may have cancer actually discover they have something as serious as that, they will most likely have been through different traditional healers, taking so many potions and pills and herbs before they eventually see that they're not getting any healing, and then they come to the hospital. I'll give a personal example, right? When I was still in diagnostic practice, had a patient that came to the hospital for a mammogram. And whenever these patients come, I always try to ask, what brought you to the hospital? Even though there's a request card that has your information and an indication that made you come, I still like to speak to you, ask you. So I'm sure that what you tell me tallies with what is on your request card. And the lady proceeded to give me a history of what brought her to the hospital. So apparently she believes that in her lineage, in their environment, their culture, they don't believe in cancer. She believes nobody can ever have cancer. Nobody in her family has ever had cancer, so it's literally impossible. So when she noticed a lump in her breast, rather than come to the hospital, she went to a prophet. According to her, she said the prophet told her that her stepmother was the one that, because she was progressing in life, that her stepmother was the one that was sending an illness to attack her so that her business would not grow, something along that line. And so they had to do a lot of spiritual cleansing and so many other things. But she noticed that, with the prophet as well, she was not getting any better. Her condition was getting worse. So the prophet happened to convince her that, okay, it's like her own powers were not strong enough to battle whatever the stepmom was using against her. And so she should go and see another superior traditional healer. Now, upon meeting the superior traditional healer she referred her to, that traditional healer, upon presentation, told her, listen, that she has had a family member, because the traditional healer happens to be female as well, that she has had a family member that presented with these similar symptoms, who eventually had to go to the hospital and was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she passed on. And she has had some other patients that have presented with similar symptoms who eventually have met the same fate. So she's advising the lady that she should not bother with herbs and divination and consulting the spirits and all of that right now, that she should go to a particular diagnostic facility. And she mentioned the name of the facility I was attached to at that point in time. And that was what brought the lady there. Now, this lady has been seeing hospitals. She definitely has access to hospitals. Knowing where to go was not the problem. However, the problem, the issue I was able to see there was that these people have so much influence, that's the traditional healers, on the patients, on people that their core belief system is in traditional herbs and spirituality and things like that. So they are able to convince such folks to come to the medical facility, be it a hospital or nuclear medicine facility, for them to receive adequate care. Now, those kind of traditional healers may not be in the majority, right? Because this one was able to recognize that in a slang in my country, this one has her power, right? Is much bigger than something she can do, and she was able to refer her. So I believe that for us to be able to integrate nuclear medicine with traditional healing practices, the first thing to do would be to introduce a referral system, right? We have to educate these traditional healers on the red flags to spot, the things that when they see them, and then incentivize this referral system so that they don't feel like their source of livelihood is threatened. And then you give them some form of legitimacy and nationwide recognition so that they understand that they can practice while they're being regulated. Now, this is not me saying you need to include them into nuclear imaging practice or anything of that nature. But since we are in a continent where people visit traditional healers first, it makes more sense that for you to be able to reach those cases in the rural areas, those cases where the people mistrust modern medicine, is through boundary spanners. I call them boundary spanners, like the traditional healers, for example, to be able to now come to the city or to come to wherever that nuclear medicine facility is, because educational, informational campaigns are not enough. I know we definitely, when it comes to cancer, we say that early detection saves lives, which is true, but these people do not understand that there's something of that nature wrong with them. So when they listen to people like these traditional healers, these are the ones that tell them, all right, you go to the hospital. Now, on the African continent, apart, due to the fact that there's hardly any literature on this, because there's no interface between nuclear medicine and then traditional healing practices, I'll give examples of other parts of the healthcare sector. framework in other countries that have been able to successfully integrate nuclear medicine practices, right? So for example, I would say Zimbabwe. Now post Zimbabwe's independence, they were able to set up something called ZINATA. That's the Zimbabwe National Association of National Traditional Healers Association, sorry. So ZINATA was put together, and then they, sometime in the mid 2000s, they were now licensed, given some form of state recognition and legitimacy, and that incentivized those traditional healers. That's what I'm talking about, incentivizing the referral system. So what they were able to achieve was, since they know that a good portion of the Zimbabwe citizens are very much interested in seeking help with these traditional healers first, they were able to use these traditional healers to tackle a serious disease affecting their population, such as tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, for example. So these traditional leaders were educated. There was a training curriculum. Look at what you're going to look out for. So when these people in the rural communities come to you, once you see these symptoms, refer them to the clinic. And it was working. Another beautiful example of this is in Rwanda. Now, post the Rwandan genocide, sometime in, I think, 1994, after this genocide, this conflict, there was the total infrastructure, social infrastructure of the country, sorry, was in shambles, and the healthcare system as well was in complete shambles. Now, the only existing health system during that time frame were the traditional healers, that's the abufumus. And what the government did was they recognized that it would be very difficult to build the healthcare system from the ground up again. So they needed to use the platform that was already in existence. That's these abufumus that I'm referring to, because they were the ones people went to when they had illnesses. They were the ones people went when they had injuries during the conflict. So what did the government do? They adopted the same method that the Zimbabwe government did. They used a referral system, right? So since they were suffering a severe catastrophic shortage of doctors and nurses and clinics, they used these abufumus in conjunction with some of the physicians they had to actually get referrals to the hospitals they were setting up. They were educating them on basic hygiene practices, on birth process practices, sterilization, things like that, and then also educating them on the signs and symptoms of communicable diseases such as TB, malaria, HIV/AIDS, which was prevalent at around that time, and they achieved a very high success rate. So what am I trying to say? That there are cases, right, practical examples on the African continent that show that if you integrate these traditional health practices into the national health infrastructure plan, what you tend to do is to achieve a higher success rate rather than treating them in isolation, in silos. Now, I work in advocacy, and there's something I've learned over time, that diplomacy and tact are very important when you're trying to handle these kind of projects and situations. Rather than attempt to prove the superiority of Western medicine and discredit their beliefs, you don't do that. At this point in time, you can reach a consensus that Western medicine may say that cancer is caused by cancer cells. Traditional medicine may say that there's some spiritual ancestor that's causing it. But what is important is that the both of you have agreed that there's something wrong with this patient's health. And then the patient's health is paramount. How do we treat it? So rather than discrediting what these the people believe, the traditional healers believe, find a way to integrate it, and hence that referral system that I'm referring to. Now, how do I bring it down to nuclear medicine? Nuclear medicine interface with the traditional medicine interface would require that referral system that I'm referring to, right? When you need to get to these patients that are in the villages, that are in the rural communities, the people, the boundary spanners are the ones that are going to refer them, because there are two reasons. Number one, some patients mistrust modern medicine. That's the truth. Then when somebody that they feel is superior, that has a superior suggestion, such as a traditional healer, they will listen to the person and come. Then secondly, some of them are not even aware that they have treatment modalities or options like that. So when they go to that traditional healer and the person tells them, look, instead of taking all these herbs and all these things, there's a place somewhere in the city or somewhere close by. It doesn't even necessarily have to be in the city, where they have a powerful tool and equipment that can see into your body, that can see what is wrong with you, and then prescribe treatments for you. You see, those people will now actually get up and go. Sometimes ignorance is actually the problem. So when you employ some of these boundary spanners, you now come to discover that you can actually have access to reach to more patients, especially those in the rural areas. And there's something I would also like to point out. Like I said earlier, there's no point trying to discredit their beliefs, even if you have your own opinion on what the power of evidence-based medicine, which is what nuclear medicine falls under. Rather than try to discredit their beliefs, sometimes understand that they know the what, right, behind like the herbs that they are using. What they may not know is the why and the how. In fact, that is what they don't know. That's the difference between evidence-based medicine and traditional based medicine. I'll give an example of Ghana. Ghana has been able to use the CPMR, that's the Ghana Center for Plant Medicine and Research, to be able to integrate herbal medicine remedies with traditional health healers. What they were able to do is, when the traditional healers say that they use this plant or that plant in order to be able to treat a certain ailment, the CPMR now says, okay, you told us the name of this plant, let us take it to our lab to do some research on it and then get better information on it, how it works in the body, what is the active ingredient, what are the dosages you get. And at that point in time, now they know that this plant works. The how and the why is what CPMR that's develops. So you can see that there's an interface, there's an integration between pharmacology and then traditional health practices. There's one example that I really want to give to further buttress my point. There's a growing up on this pharmacology thing. Growing up, we had a housekeeper that she was an uneducated lady, but there's this particular leaf this woman would swear by in her life, that this leaf cures malaria, cures fever and chills. And a lot of people will just take it like, this woman doesn't know what she's saying. But she kept telling us that growing up, her grandfather was a traditional healer. And there's a particular plant he used to bring back from Nasarawa State anytime he traveled there, to treat malaria and things like that. And they would blend the leaf and boil it and then extract the tea and drink it. And according to, like I said, she would swear with her entire life that it cures things. Now, what did I discover growing older? I discovered that this woman was not wrong, because apparently the leaf she was referring to, I think Yorubas call it Efiri Ajase. Apologies if I didn't pronounce it well, but I got to discover that the botanical name of that plant is Artemisia annua. Now, that is the same plant that was discovered by the researcher to Yu. She was one that won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for discovery of the anti-malarial drug, that uses artemisinin. So what did Yu discover? She discovered that there's an ancient Chinese text where they wrote for emergency medicine, where there's a plant called quinquoa. The plant is quinquoa, and if you boil the quinquoa and then extract the tea and drink it, it cures fever, it cures chills. So what did Tuyuyu do? She went to the lab with her team, and then they were able to isolate the active ingredients in the plants, and then they discovered that not only does it cure fever and chills, it was very active against fighting the causative agent of malaria, which is the Plasmodium falciparum. And that was how she was able to invent the drug artemisinin that is widely used today. It has saved millions of people and cured millions of people's lives from malaria, right? And where did she get this information from? Yes, it's commercially sold now as a malaria drug, but it was traditional medicine practice in China, a plant that they just boil and drink for those kind of things. So that's why I believe we shouldn't entirely erode traditional medicine practices. Instead, we should find a way to understand it and then use science and research to try to find out the why. Because what they know, like I said earlier, is the what. But the how and the why, they don't know. And I also bring this back to nuclear medicine. right? Certain by interaction with some of these traditional healers, you get to also know some of the things that they're actually administering to their patients, right? In certain cases, patients will go to them for things like pain relief or anxiety treatment. I know for sure that there's something they call agbo in Nigeria, in Yoruba land. I think it's a mixture of roots and herbs, and it has three key components. It has what's it called? Ginkgo biloba. It has, I think, in allium sativum, that should be garlic, and it has ginger in very high concentrations. And research has showed that when you have these three active ingredients in very high concentrations, they become the mixture becomes a blood thinner. So the herbalist does not know he is giving out a blood thinner. The patient doesn't know he or she is consuming a blood thinner. So should they eventually, like when you integrate the referral system and then the traditional healer tells them to come to the nuclear medicine facility and they get there, if you ask the patient, are you taking any medication? They'll say, no, nothing. But my traditional healer said I should take agbo for pain or anxiety or whatever it is. At that point in time, due to the fact that you have been having some interaction with them, you have an idea of some of the things that they have administered or they administer due to the fact that there's a union now, there's some form of interface. You know that this agbo is a blood thinner. So you know that if the person came for some IV cannularization procedure, you cannot proceed because a blood thinner obviously is going to result in high volume of blood loss. So when you have these kind of interactions, you now have a better idea of some of the things these people are consuming. So not just do you know what they're consuming, you have an idea of what to tell these traditional healers to regulate. So you're not at a point where you're trying to say, oh, please, stop using traditional medical practices. I mean, certain patients need that support for spirituality because, like I said, it's their core belief system. So instead of trying to work in isolation, find a common ground where people can work. Next time you're telling the traditional healer, please, when you're referring somebody to the facility next time, kindly note that during this time frame, if you're doing your ritual or your cleansing or whatever herbalist procedure you're doing, please know that you should not make the patient ingest anything. It's good that you refer the patient to the nuclear medicine facility. However, due to the fact you don't have to start going into the details about how is a blood thinner or not, right? You know that is going to just tell the person is going to interfere with our scan. So you can be divining with the spirits, you can be intercessing with the person with all the ancestors and all of that spiritually, but leave the physical battling of the case, the illness, the cancer with the nuclear medicine facility. Kindly do not give them anything that's going to interfere with the quality and the results of the scan. Because like I said, I've worked in advocacy for a long time. I know that diplomacy is important. I know that tact is important when you're handling these kind of projects. And since our webinar is about the role of nuclear medicine in integrated healthcare. Integrated healthcare is when the different parts of the healthcare system are coming together to work. The community health workers, the specialists, the lab scientists, the pharmacists, all of them. And the end goal is to ensure continuous patient care, not a fragmented form of patient care. That way, the whole patient's journey from detection, from the day the patient arrives to when they get their treatment, is working in sync. Right? It's not fragmented, it's not broken down. At the end of the day, you discover that if you include these traditional healers into the framework, you discover that you're giving it a holistic approach. You're not telling the patient that their ancestors that they're praying to is not working, but at the same time, they feel like those things are working for them spiritually. And you find that such patients will find it easier to cooperate with you when you are doing your own scans and things like that. So anyway, to sum up my message today, I'm simply trying to say that adopting a holistic approach is the best way when it comes to trying to find how nuclear medicine can integrate with traditional healing practices. You're not trying to introduce traditional medicine into your clinic or anything of that nature, but ensuring that you're not discrediting their belief system, ensuring that you're working hand in hand with them, at least also coming down to their, for lack of a better word, to their level, to make them understand that, you know, even though you are doing certain practices to try to make the patient better, but things can move on quickly. The patient can get their health better much faster if you also include Western-backed medicine into the mix. So hence the term, the integrated approach. So I think I'll be rounding up at this point in time. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Heba, over to you.
Thank you for your discussion. It is an open discussion. It seems that we were talking together, not at the webinar. It was really powerful and informative. Kindly be informed. Anyone which please put it because our next panelist has another engagement, so he will need to start. If you have any question to Mrs. Shanalu, please put it on the chat and we will mention at the webinar. Now moving to our second, not the last panelist, but his name is Dr. Musa Youssef Dambal. The PhD is the distinguished scholar and a professional radiographer. He lectures at Cairo University, Kano, where he has served department, coordinated graduate program in medical radiography, holds advanced qualification including PhD in radiation and environmental protection, multiple postgraduate certification in imaging, for 35 scholar publications. Benoit Academia, Dr. Dambal is the president of Association of Radiographers of Nigeria and a member of governing board of Radiographer Registration Board of Nigeria, where he also chaired the education committee. He is widely recognized for his contribution to radiography education research and the professional development of Nigeria. Dr. Musa, now the floor is for you. You can start now. Dr. Musa.
Yeah, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may find yourself, because I can see some people are from outside this continent, and so it may be in the morning, it may also be in the afternoon and the evening, wherever you find yourself. My name is Musa Yusuf Dambele. Just like the moderator has rightly introduced me, I will not need to introduce myself further. I guess you can all see my slides, if I'm not mistaken. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Moderator, can you see my slide?
Yes, Dr. Musa, we are seeing your slide now.
Yes, you can see your slides.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to be looking at the bridging the gap, integrating nuclear medicine into Nigeria's healthcare fabric. Just like I was introduced, I represent the radiographers in Nigeria. Basically, we are part and core members of nuclear medicine family. Just like with the other panelists have rightly discussed with us, nuclear medicine is an amalgamative process that looks into diagnostics and therapy. It's a precision medicine that it's used for both diagnostic and therapeutic aspects of medicine. And one of the beauty of nuclear medicine is that it helps the onset, to discover the onset of disease condition, especially that has to do with illnesses like cancer and other related cases like heart and lung cases. However, as an introduction, we are looking at a scenario where we can integrate this healthcare system where we can synergize both the modern science and traditional practice based on the day we find ourselves today. But one thing is certain, and that is that Africa has a unique challenge, and that challenge is subjected to various reasons. However, we have scenarios of high disease burden, low access to advanced care, and this is not far-fetched, and these are a multifaceted reasons that cut across every nooks and crannies of Africa. We're going to look in depth into some of these things as we move ahead. So what is the nuclear medicine pathway? In simple terms, just like it has been explained, after the radiopharmaceuticals has been produced, the next thing is for the radiopharmaceutical to be administered. This can be intrathecal, it can be intravascular, it can be taken orally, it can be inhaled, depending on the area of interest. So this nuclear radiopharmaceutical can be administered to the patient. And when that happens, you have two ways by which this can be done. The first thing is to image this patient immediately, or you allow the radiopharmaceutical to have circulated to the areas of interest. Then you go in and scan this patient. That is on the diagnostic aspect. But if it's on the therapeutic aspect, for example, a patient who presents with thyroid toxicosis and or hypothyroidism, and you want to this patient to maintain euthyroid, or you have a case of thyroid cancer where thyroidectomy has been done, and the next thing will be to have some level of thyroid ablation therapy, where iodine 123 or 3131 will be administered and to ablate the areas of concern. And the most important thing, as we said, is the functionality and the molecular nature of nuclear medicine. And that's why it gets this, you get to see disease condition at onset, because it takes less than 5 to 10% calcium mineral loss for you to detect anything in nuclear medicine, unlike in diagnostic radiography, where it has to be about 50 to 60 or 100% calcium mineral loss. So that gives the nuclear medicine some level of advantage. However, you can also rule out the anatomical aspect. And that is why in modern day nuclear medicine, you don't only have the SPECT and PET scanners. You now have an hybrid imaging where you have the SPECT and the SPECT attached to CT, or the PET scanner attached to CT or MR. So we are having situation like that so that we can fuse both the functional and the anatomical aspect of the image, so we get image of diagnostic quality, and we can easily detect disease condition as early as possible. This has been discussed in the first presentation, so I will not waste time on that. However, for Africa and Nigeria, let me use Africa. The rising burden of cancer has been a major concern. And just like the last speaker said, most of these things are attributable to either a witchcraft, or it's been attributable to somebody who is against our personality. Cardiovascular, neurological, and thyroid diseases are common. All these aspects, all these areas, with the advent of nuclear medicine, it has helped to some extent discover the early onset of some of these disease conditions, and further treatment has been taken in that regard. In Nigeria, for example, we have over 200 million population, and we have limited nuclear medicine access. I'm going to talk about that in the next few slides. But as such, health system depend heavily on some of these traditional medicine. I'll give you an example where I currently reside. In front of a teaching hospital, which is a referral tertiary center, you have in opposite the gate of the referral center, you see traditional medicine experts who sit in front of the hospital, and they almost have more patients than the patient who comes into the hospital. They have a lot of patients who patronize them. They believe that they can give them results with respect to the modern medicine. So we're having scenarios like that. It cuts across. So I quite agree with the last speaker with respect to some of these things. However, in Nigeria, as I speak with you, as at 3 p.m. today, we have just 4 functional nuclear medicine centers in Nigeria. We have one in the University College Hospital, the National Hospital, Healthcare in Lagos, and we have Mikio, which is the only center currently that has a PET scanner in Nigeria. So invariably in UCH Ibadan, we have two SPECT cameras. One is a single head gamma camera, and the other is SPECT CT double head gamma camera. In National Hospital, we have a double head gamma camera without CT attached to it. And so this is what we are currently having. Evercare to has a gamma camera. So we have centers like Sokoto, Zaria, and other areas that the constructions have been on. Sokoto is even having a nuclear two gamma cameras that are not functioning. Some areas in Port Harcourt, Kwara State, and others, we don't have a functional nuclear medicine center. So these are the only 4 centers that are taking care of over 200 million Nigeria when it comes to nuclear medicine practice. So as we speak now, we have less than 10 nuclear medicine radiographers taking care of 200 million people. The physicians and the radiographers and the medical physicists that are trained in Nigeria, because we don't have enough centers in Nigeria, most of them goes for training. When they come back, they don't have facility to work with. As I speak with you, all of them, virtually all of them have gone out. Some of them in Saudi Arabia, in South Africa, in other parts of the world, United Arab Emirates, because you can't be trained and you come and sit down. So we have a lot. The issue of manpower distribution is extremely skewed. And I can tell you authoritatively, all these people are talking about, they are in the urban center, they are not in the rural setting. So these are some of the things that we're talking about, the gap that we're seeing. So most of these guys have left the country. So as such, we are having limited manpower who will handle these numbers of patients. So as radiographers, permit me to be skilled. One of the things that we do is, apart from the patient preparation and safety, we administer the radiopharmaceutical. Why I'm bringing this is for the audience who are radiographers and those who cares to know what we do in the nuclear medicine. The acquisition and processing of the functional images, the amalgamation of the images, the hybrid images, the radiation protection and dose optimization, which is our primary custody, then the clinical audits, teaching and research, which is a fulcrum of or bedrock of any center. So, but what we are going to look into also is the diagnostic impact of this nuclear medicine. Detecting disease at the molecular and functional level, it identifies abnormalities before anatomical changes. Example is the PET CT for early cancer staging. We see that, and the first speaker made mention of some of these things. And it's essential for neurology cases, Alzheimer, epilepsy, cardiology, oncology. Do so many cases like GIT cases, lung perfusion scan, cardiac scans. So many of these things are at the onset, so that you get immediate treatment before it transcends into a non-term cases. Also the therapeutic aspect, which I mentioned earlier on, the radioiodine therapy. Before the advent of nuclear medicine, the surgeon will have to go in several times to take off the thyroid glands, and there could be some level of complication. But with iodine 131 and nuclear medicine, we'll be able to reduce the amount of time somebody will infiltrate into those areas. The first speaker talked about diagnostic, which I will not delve into, and we have so many cases of the use of Lutetium-177 in diagnostic, personalized cancer care, which will improve outcomes, and it has a fewer side effect when it's properly administered. This is one of the challenges we have in nuclear medicine, the infrastructural issue that I mentioned earlier. In the whole of Nigeria now, we have just 4 functional centers. This is one of the SPECT CT gamma camera you can see in University College Hospital, Ibadan in Nigeria. We have about 3 or 4 of that in the whole of the country currently. So the cost, just like the first speaker mentioned, the cost implication is massive. For you to invest in this kind of project, it has to be either government or a public-private partnership that will be sustainable. So these are things that everybody has to, all hands has to be on deck, the politicians and every well-meaning Africans, so that we can have some of these things at our doorstep. These things are even more expensive in the developed world. So human resource, the manpower shortage I mentioned earlier on, and there had been a policy gap when it comes to nuclear medicine. And as such, we need to have a scenario where nuclear medicine will be imputed in the current health dynamics of every country in Africa, because it has been a major challenge. What it means is that in some country in Africa today, they don't have a single nuclear medicine center. So what that means is that they will have to work based either to go to other countries to get the service, or they manually assumed or depend on the clinical indication or history to treat such patients. And you know the aftermath of that, what it could result to. So what are the opportunities in nuclear medicine? We need to have what we call regional centers of excellence in West, East, Southern Africa, and North Africa, so that we have this collaborative engagement. We have this input that we can come in together. For example, in my PhD, I did a work on establishing diagnostic reference level for nuclear medicine centers in Nigeria. Now, in other climes, in the European nation, the Asia, they have what we call regional, like European diagnostic reference level. You have in Asia, you have in the United States and others. In Africa, we're yet to have a common ground on collaborative opportunities. And we have so many of these opportunities that we can bring together, facilitate training for ourselves, and do a lot of research that can bring everybody together. We can collaborate with IAA, just like the radio pharmacist said. One thing IAA does is when the country is willing and they are ready to bring in counterpart funding, then they can work together with IAA. But what we have noticed in recent time is that when the countries have collaboration, memorandum of understanding with IAEA, that IAEA take 50%, the country take 50%, IAEA almost single-handedly fund the whole thing, and the other country will not participate in the collaborative funding. So this has led to a lot of shortfall and fallbacks, which is really giving us a lot of challenge in this part of the world. The World Health Organization has so many programs. The AFRA has so many collaborative programs for Africa. So if you go to IAEA website, you can see so many of these programs for the nuclear medicine physician, the nuclear medicine radiographers, the medical physicists, the nuclear medicine nurses, and others. So these are areas that we need to look into. Another area we can come in, and nobody will invest in local radiopharmaceutical production hub and you will lose, because most of what we get is to go outside. For example, in Nigeria, we don't have any center where we can produce any of our local radiopharmaceutical. The molybdenum generator that we use, we have to go outside the country to get it. The drugs that the radiopharmaceutical we use for our theranostic, we have to go out of the country to get it, either from South Africa, or we go to Europe, Turkey, France, and get all those things. If we have this local radiopharmaceutical production hub, it will be a positive thing for us. I went to a hospital in South Korea, and it's just a private hospital, They have everything. The cyclotron is there, the syntactic is there for them to produce their local radiopharmaceuticals, and everything is in that hospital. But for us in Africa, it's a challenge. Maybe in Egypt, the first speaker mentioned one or two areas. So we need to look into that. We need to also come into play, put into use the public-private partnership that will aid the more nuclear medicine centers across Africa. So what are the policy recommendations is to include nuclear medicine in national cancer control plans, just like we are currently having in Nigeria, where we are setting up a lot of radiotherapy and oncology centers in Nigeria, virtually in the whole, in each of the geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Also is to create scholarship, postgraduate and residency programs for radiographers, for medical physicists and the physicians, to encourage and build more manpower, so that we can have enough manpower to take care of our teeming population. We also want to encourage the PPP, just like I mentioned, to share infrastructural costs and to have what we call support for local isotope production for sustainability. This will go a long way to assist to build capacity. Now, how do we do that? We need to expand our academic programs. For example, in Nigeria now we have a lot of postgraduate opportunities in nuclear medicine. We have a master's and PhD programs in nuclear medicine. We have, I supervise currently some master's students in nuclear medicine and in PhD level. So we have nuclear medicine programs in Nigeria. We want to extend our tentacle outside the shore of Nigeria to extend it to other parts of Africa, so we can collaborate with Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, and other parts of Africa. We can have these mutual and exchange programs where people can visit from Nigeria to South Africa, South Africa to Nigeria, Nigeria to Egypt, Egypt to Kenya, Kenya to Tanzania. And these are the things that we want to establish. And the latest is about hybrid imaging and diagnostics, the order of the day. And we need to do a lot in that area. And we need to do a lot of train the trainers model to scale up expertise. Those who are trained to train others so that we can scale up the expertise. And we need to empower especially radiographers as advanced practice specialists in this area, because they do a lot when it comes to the nuclear medicine practice, administering the radiopharmaceutical, just like you can see one young man there administering the radiopharmaceutical, radiation protection, the image acquisition, the interpreting, and the psychology. So all these things put together, we need to do a lot of that in that. So what are the digital future? What somebody asks, what is the role of AI? The beginning, the fear of the fear that AI, or those of you who does not feel that AI has come to stay, then you are living in the past. AI has really come, and virtually all we make use of today, AI is involved. So definitely there will be AI-assisted image reconstruction interpretation in nuclear medicine, just like we have seen in ultrasound. We have scenarios already. We now have integration of PET MR, PET CT, SPECT CT is already there. We have big data for population health management so that we can compare and contrast. We can predict and have modelings. We can have predictive modelings that will aid the course of either the diagnosis and treatment. So these are areas that we need. The future is like for us in Africa. Also is the digital workflow for precision medicine. These are areas that we cannot deny, and they are already at our doorsteps. And to the last, we'll be talking about patient-centered integration. For us in Africa, we need to respect our patient cultural beliefs, even though we need to now align it to evidence-based. We must do collaborative dialogue with traditional healers, just like last speaker mentioned, so that we can guide them on their limits and what they need to send to us. Because for now in Africa, you cannot totally eliminate this set of people. So as such, what you do is to do some in states like Lagos, government on the modus operandi of these traditional healers. And as such, they know their limits and they know what to do and what not to do to a patient. They know the patient to accept and patient not to accept. So when we have the Africa, then it goes a long way to assist medical treatment. Also is educating patients about nuclear medicine safety, because when many patients hear nuclear, even practitioners, when they hear nuclear, everybody would pick race. Everybody runs away, because nuclear itself, from the knowledge of a nuclear bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, had thrown a lot of fear when the word nuclear is mentioned. And that's why we want to commend the organizers of this program for this nuclear initiative, for peaceful use initiative that they are doing, because we just have to educate the people and the masses about the safety in nuclear medicine, because the radiopharmaceuticals we use and the radiation that we administer is so infinitesimal, so small, that it's almost an unimaginable radiation dose. However, with our knowledge of stochastic effects, we don't joke with any radiation. No amount of radiation is more for us as practitioners. So we need to build trust through holistic approach also in this regard. So what's our vision for the future? Number one is to have accessible nuclear medicine services across Africa. Number two is to have this workforce built for sustainability. We must train our locals so that we will not have this scenario where we train people, people run away. We need to train people who we need to have a sustainable plan for our workforce integration. We need to integrate our cultural system into our practice. And Africa as a leader, we must have this vision that Africa will be a leader in hybrid models of healthcare. So in conclusion, nuclear medicine, more than precision. Traditional medicine is a cultural trust. How do we amalgamate them? We can together holistically integrate it into African healthcare without any compromise. Lastly, our call to action: invest in nuclear medicine, prioritize manpower training, support African-led solution, and rise the nuclear medicine team to rise to fill the critical gaps. Once again, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Muta, for your time, for your powerful presentation, and for your contribution. Your presentation plays a vital role in our events. There are a lot of engagement from our audience, and there are some questions. We have more than one question, but kindly be informed that you can drop your question on the chat. Because we have one more panelist, and then we are open for the question. So please keep with us because we have more than one question, and we will move to our last but not least panelist until and after the panelist, Mrs. Vienna, you are able to contact with the other speakers. Now we are having Mrs. Vienna. She is a medical physician from Kenya with 3 years of clinical experience at Tax Cancer Center, Nairobi. She is currently an IA2 Advanced Master Study in Medical Physics at the University of Trieste in collaboration with International Center for Theoretical Physics, ICTP, Italy. Her professional expertise spans across diagnostics, radiation therapy, and nuclear medicine. In radiation therapy, she has experience in treatment planning, dose calculation, patient-specific quality assurance. Her work in diagnostic radiology has involved image quality optimization in nuclear medicine, trend in the use of the radiopharmaceutical SPECT and PET imaging, image quantification, and dosimetry, with a focus on how molecular imaging can enhance early diagnosis and guide personalized therapy. Her expertise position at the intersections of technology and patient care, enabling her to contribute to the integration of nuclear medicine into Africa healthcare system. Mrs. Vienna, we are going to give us a presentation under the topic of from diagnosis to therapy, the critical role of medical physicists. The floor is for you now.
Thank you so much, Hiba, for the kind introduction. Kindly confirm if you are able to hear me.
Yes, we are hearing you and we are seeing your screen very well.
Thank you so much. So as you have heard, good evening, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Vina Haloy. I'm a medical physicist by profession and currently studying advanced master studies at the University of Trieste in conjunction with the International Center for Theoretical Physics. And it's an honor to share this space with distinguished colleagues and to talk about how nuclear medicine is able to transform healthcare. So I'm going to give you an insight, a roadmap of my presentation. We will see what nuclear medicine is. We will see the current progress and gaps in Africa, the critical role that medical physicists have in nuclear medicine. We will see a case study in reality of how nuclear medicine is able to transform patient care. We will view the opportunities and challenges, see the vision, and we will close. So, as you have heard from previous colleagues, nuclear medicine is a field whereby we use radioactive substances for the diagnosis and treatment of many health conditions, such as cancer and cardiovascular diseases. So the radioisotope is embedded in the drug to form a radiopharmaceutical, and this radiopharmaceutical travels to specific organ and tissues throughout the body. Some of the radionuclides that we use I've listed here. We have iodine-131, which is used to treat thyroid malignancies and benign thyroid diseases like thyrotoxicosis and hyperthyroidism. We have yttrium, which is used for treatment of liver cancer. We have molybdenum-99, which is the parent isotope that is used to produce technetium-99 metastable, that is used to image the skeletal, the heart, and other organs and tissues. And lastly, lutetium-177, which is used for target therapy in advanced prostate cancer. Therefore, this means nuclear medicine plays a dual role. It can be used in diagnosis through the use of PET and SPECT imaging, and therapy through radionuclide therapy and theranostics. On my right, we see a PET scan image of a patient with metastatic disease. Image A, the disease has spread to most of the organs in the body. And after therapy, we see image B, whereby we can see the response to treatment. So where are we as Africa? According to IEA Nuclear Medicine Database, which is a powerful tool that gives data on nuclear medicine facilities, equipment inventories, radiopharmaceutical use, and manpower distribution worldwide. We see that one of the leading African countries in nuclear medicine is South Africa and Egypt. Kenya is also following through. Right now we have 3 cyclotrons, and we also have other progress initiatives through IEA. And the same database has also identified quite a number of challenges, including many countries having little or no nuclear medicine infrastructure, with less than 20% of African countries having PET scanners. And also the skilled workforce from nuclear medicine physicians, radiopharmacists, medical physicists, and radiation technologists. So, having mentioned that, nuclear medicine is not a standalone solution. Nuclear medicine incorporates cardiology, incorporates surgery, etc. And behind this, there's a multidisciplinary team of radiation pharmacists, of nuclear medicine physicians, of medical physicists, and of technologists. So let me give you an insight of what medical physicists' role is in nuclear medicine. Medical physicists ensures that nuclear medicine is delivered safe, effectively, and accurately. We protect the patient, we protect the medical staff, we protect the members of the public, the caregivers, through radiation protection. We perform calibration of the equipment, we perform quality assurance, we validate image protocols, we optimize imaging protocols also to ensure that we maximize on the diagnostic value and minimize the amount of dose that the patient is getting. And also, we're involved in research and innovation through advanced reconstruction methods and also theranostics dosimetry. So to bring the importance of nuclear medicine into reality, I'm going to share a case study with you of a patient that we recently treated in my facility. The patient is anonymized because of patient confidentiality. It was a 33-year-old female that with papillary thyroid carcinoma, and the patient was referred to a facility for radioactive iodine-131 therapy. So we administered the first therapy, and then 8 days later, our radiation oncologist sent the patient for radioiodine post-therapy whole body scan. And in March 2024,
The nuclear medicine physician report indicated findings in keeping with the near total thyroidectomy with a bulky functioning thyroid tissue remnants and with no scintigraphic features of distant metastases. And therefore, we expected good outcome. Our radiation oncologists recommended we repeat the radioablative therapy 6 months later. And so the patient came back in October 2024, and we gave a second dose of radioiodine, 100 millicurie. 8 days later, we repeated the post-therapy scan, and the nuclear medicine physician report indicated good response to 2 radioablative therapies with complete tumor remission scintigraphically. So this patient until date is in good condition and is under clinical surveillance. This is the image on the left is the scintigraphic scan after the patient underwent the first ablative therapy. And the image on the right is the report of the second therapy. So what are the opportunities and challenges that we face in the African context? There's a very high increase in cases of cancer and cardiac diseases, which drives nuclear medicine demand. There's a lot of growing interest in medical physics and other related nuclear sciences, encouraging young workforce. And also there's a lot of digital health leverage through telenuclear medicine and AI-driven image analysis. And where there are opportunities, of course, there are also challenges. So challenges still remain that there is inequality access in that most of these PET and SPECT cities are clustered in a few major cities. So this leaves the rural population behind. There are also workforce gaps. There is a lot of shortage of skilled workforce of nuclear medicine physicians, radiopharmacists, medical physicists, and technologists. And also the sustainability issues like equipment downtime and fragile isotope supply. And this can, they can really compromise the outcome, the patient outcomes. And at higher levels, the policy and funding barriers whereby we have limited integration in the national health budgets. So what can we do now? We can build capacity and expand nuclear medicine training programs and clinical fellowships locally and regionally. We can strengthen our networks through collaboration with IEA, AFRA, WHO, the Ministry of Health, and other collaborators, and encourage African-led research and development in radiopharmaceuticals and affordable technologies. And also through retention of the workforce. Otherwise, we will be building capacity only to lose it. So as a medical physicist, I see an Africa whereby nuclear medicine is the pillar of healthcare, whereby nuclear medicine is fully embedded in national health systems, whereby we have African-led training hubs that produces the medical physicists, radiopharmacists, nuclear medicine physicians, whereby we have affordable PET and SPECT solutions tailored to African realities, whereby we're able to do local production of our radiopharmaceuticals and encouraging collaboration and research. In conclusion, nuclear medicine means advancing through the diagnostics, as we have heard also from previous colleagues. And also there's a lot of development of highly targeted radiopharmaceuticals. And in hybrid imaging technologies, we have also great innovations like PET MRI, SPECT CTs, which provide superior anatomical and functional imaging. And also a collaborative practice whereby all this multidisciplinary team strengthens each other. And that's it from my side, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Vienna, for your technical presentation. We are really interested in it, and they are asking about to send us the presentation. So kindly send the presentation I don't find words to thank you for your time and for your efforts. Now we are opening for the questionnaires to Mrs. Vienna, Mrs. Shinelo, and Dr. Musa. So kindly, if you wanted to ask them a question, raise your hand and also set the question to each panelist. Yeah, Mr. Iwa Jamsa, you have a question. Go. Yes, Mr. Iwa Jamsa, now you are raising your hand. If you have a question, please go through.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me, please, moderator?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go through.
Okay, thank you.
One. Okay.
Okay, my name is Kudrat Adeshina. My question is directed to Dr. Dambele, please. You mentioned during your talk that Nigeria has 4 nuclear medicine units, but at the same time, there are no radiopharmaceutical plants. So I was just wondering, so the nature of the work being done at those nuclear medicine sites, are they restricted to radiopharmaceuticals or, I mean, radioactive materials that has longer half-life? Because I'm wondering about the logistics of, technetium, for instance, the half-life is 6 hours. So I'm just wondering, do you have to rely on maybe just using molybdenum till it decays, things like that? Can you please kindly clarify how you work around that logistics of, the half-life of these radionuclide materials and, the kind of work you do in Nigeria? Thank you.
Dr. Musa, can you respond to her, please?
Should I go ahead and answer this?
Sorry, Dr. Musa.
Should I go ahead and answer?
Yes, please go ahead and answer this question.
Okay, thank you so much. Just like I said, we have more than 4 centers currently. However, 4 are just functional. That's currently functional. But the true challenge is that one of the biggest limitations in Nigeria and across many countries in Africa is the lack of local cyclotron or generator production facility, which makes it difficult to produce radiopharmaceutical with short half-life. For example, if you don't have a cyclotron, you cannot even do a PET, for example, that has a very short half-life. So if the half-life is about 120 minutes or something. So what that means is that if I'm going to buy it from South Africa, before I get to Nigeria, then the half-life is exhausted, so I cannot use it. So importations are always from abroad. So what we normally do, the technetium generator are flown in from Europe, Middle East, but it's costly and time sensitive. So what we do is to schedule patient carefully. We scan and cluster around arrival of generator so that doses are not wasted. So, but the longer half-life tracers like 131 iodine are sometimes used when appropriate because they allow for more flexibility when it comes to logistics. But the whole scenario is that if we are to get a radiopharmaceutical now, we will have to book for a higher dose, so that before it comes into the country, at least the level of decay will be the one that is manageable for us to be able to attend to the clustered patients that we have. So what we normally do is to book this patient on ground, and then when the radiopharmaceutical comes in, we quickly attend to those patients. After like 2 weeks that the whole thing has decayed, then we know that we have to order for another one. So these are the things. So what do we look out for? there's a need for local generator production or regional cooperation, for example, in West Africa, to ensure this steady supply. And we must advocate and invest for this ongoing nuclear technology infrastructure, including small cyclotrons in some of these hospitals in Nigeria. So the key message here is just that despite this challenge, the Nigerian Center adapt through careful planning, collaborations, and advocacy for investment. So these are the things that we want for us to be able to balance the situation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Excellent. That's
Dr. Musa.
insightful. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Mr. James. Can you state your questionnaire now, or you are not available because your hand is raising? Mr. Iwa James, are you with us or not?
Maybe we'll cover another person.
Okay, so any one of the participant is raising his hand and he wanted to ask any question. I didn't see anyone raising hand except Mr. James. So come to the end of our webinar. I would like to thank the panelists for their presentation, for their time, and for their efforts with us in this panel in celebrating of the International Day of medicine in Africa. Thank you all attendees. We will send the presentations and we will send the link of the recording of the webinar today by an email that you have already registered with. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us. Having a good day and good night. See you soon in another upcoming webinar. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Musa. Thank you, Mrs. Vienna. Thank you, Mrs. Shanalo, for your time. Thank you to the organizer and the leader of Nuclear Aware Africa, Mrs. Roos, and thank you to the leader of Capacity and Advocacy Co-Building building Group, Dr. Abdelrazak. Thank you for your time. See you soon in another webinar. Stay tuning with us on our social media of LinkedIn, Nuclear Aware Africa, and Instagram, Nuclear Aware Africa. Thank you all.